Well, just like that, Rube, the Eagles are 7-1. Never a worry in the world. They get this game done.
They don't always make it easy, do they?
They certainly do not. It was another tight game against the Commanders, who seem to play them tight all the time. This one ended with a final score of 38-31. The Eagles are 7-1 on the season. It's a good place to be.
It's a good place to be, unlike FedEx Field. Washington just gives them trouble. And years where they shouldn't, they do. Years when they should, they do. It's a weird dynamic. They just match up well against them. They have a different quarterback every time they play him, and that quarterback always plays well. Sam Howell was lights out today. One mistake, and it might have cost them the game. But it's a game you just want to escape. I don't think it has any bearing on, like, they're not going to beat the Bills now because they had a close game against Washington. I mean, are they the team that beat Miami, a really good Miami team, or the team that barely beat? They find ways to win, and that's. What are they? 14-3 and 7-1. They're 21-4 in their over the last 2 years. And did I do that right? 21-4, and then they finished the year before 4-1. So they're 25 and 5 in their last 30 games. They just win games. They just win games, and they blow people out sometimes. They're close sometimes. They really had to scratch and claw for a lot of these wins this year. And they find ways.
Yeah, and we should mention it was 38-24 until there was a touchdown late. So it's like a relatively comfortable win at the end of it, but it was not comfortable for a lot of it.
It wasn't comfortable until Devontae recovered that onside kick, honestly. But yeah, the way Howell was shredding that secondary, it was like you just get a few stops, just like get a couple stops and then just kind of, figure things out. But they did get some stops to end the second quarter and end the game before the last one. I think Reed Blankenship's interception was, they haven't had, it's only their second takeaway in 5 games. They're -7 in their last 5 games or 6 games, however you want to do it. The takeaways have been few and far between, but the 2 they've had, Slay's pick and Reed's pick, were huge. And this one was deep in Washington territory. I don't know. I don't know where they'd be if he didn't pick that ball off.
Yeah, it's fair to question, but it is crazy. They score 38 points in this game. They turn the football over twice inside the Washington 5-yard line.
Yeah, well, and the one, the first one they punted, and then it was a short punt, and they scored. So it's not like they would have scored 14 more points, but they certainly could have scored 7. They should have scored at least 45. And I've been saying that all year about the red zone issues. If you're averaging almost 28 points a game and you're bad in the red zone, and I still believe they're going to be a good red zone team, waiting for that to happen. But they had 3.
Well, you turn the football over down there. Those are like, that's not like a play calling thing, obviously.
No, it's not. In fact, this is the first time in 13 years they've had 2 turnovers inside the 5-yard line in the same game. Mm-hmm. Last time it happened, you probably looked it up, was 2010. You don't win many games when you do that. And this team finds ways to overcome some really ugly play, and they've done that all year. Other than the Jets game, 4 turnovers was just too much to overcome, but really, they've done it for the last couple of years, whether it's turnovers or mistakes or injuries. They seem to overcome whatever is in their way. It takes them a while sometimes, but they seem to find ways to do it. That's good coaching. It's good leadership, good personnel, good roster management. Look, things are rarely going to go your way for 60 minutes where you win 48-6. It just doesn't happen that much. So you got to be resilient. You got to be able to shake off negative plays and mistakes and turnovers and blown opportunities. And they do that really, really well.
Yeah, I think they spoiled fans a little bit last year. All those blowout games. Yeah. It's like, that's not normal. That's not the way this league works. Like, look at the scores at the end of any given week. There are close games. Most of them are close games. So, and I also like what you said earlier, about just because they played a game today that wasn't their best, and it's a tight game against Washington, it doesn't mean that they're not going to beat some of the tough teams coming up on their schedule. It doesn't even mean anything about next week when they play the Cowboys. It's like there's no, you said this before, there's no transitive properties of this. Like every week it changes, but the Eagles figure out a way to get it done, and that's ultimately all you can ask for. Now, they're not playing to their standard. They didn't play to their standard on defense, certainly, today, but I don't know. You clean it up, and you'd rather fix it from a win.
Yeah, who was it who said in the NFL, every game is like its own season, and they're not related. I mean, they are to an extent, but AJ Brown's going to catch 125 yards each game, each season. But I mean, that's why you just see the wild highs and lows, and you see it with every team. There's a reason no team's undefeated. There's a reason Eagles have the best record in football. Nobody else is set. It's really, really hard to overcome those things and to win consistently week in and week out in different ways. And they're really good at that.
Yeah, they are.
They
All right,
win a game 14-7 or 38-34.
You want to talk about offense a little bit?
Yeah.
Get into that. And you mentioned AJ. I mean, we have to start with him. He's just it's so special. Obviously, this is the first time in NFL history a player has had 6 games in a row with 125 plus receiving yards. So it's unbelievable.
It really is.
It really is. He's unstoppable. That catch in the end zone is as pretty as any catch you'll see.
Yeah, I mean, it's a one-hander just to catch the ball, but then to get both feet and I guess both knees inbounds. I mean, the body control it takes to do all those things and do them at high speed and do them in front of 70,000 people and who knows how many people watching on TV in a close game with a defensive back right there. I mean, you put all that together and I just don't know how that's humanly possible. He's playing at a level I've never seen and he's doing it consistently week in and week out. And I mean, Washington was I thought they were going to put Darrell Green on him. They were running out of guys to try. It was everybody.
He was here today.
Oh, was he?
They hunted him. I mean, he probably run a little bit still.
He might have been their best option. But I mean, he is such a, I mean, I was writing my 10 observations, how there were times, I mean, this franchise went so long without good wide receiver play. We would get excited because Torrance Small had 78 yards in the game. Seriously, or Travis Fulgham had 70 yards in 4 straight games. We were wow. I mean, the things we would get excited about, James Thrash had a touchdown in the fourth quarter and had 50 yards in the game. I mean, we would get all fired up. And, and then we had, Macklin and Deshaun were Eagles and they were both really good. But what we're seeing now, I can't even think of any words to describe a guy that has 125 yards 6 weeks in a row. Just the consistency, the power he's playing the game with, there's just the physicality. He's just overwhelming D-backs physically. It doesn't matter. There could be 2 guys covering him. Jalen's just chucking up to him. He's just pushing him out of the way legally, kind of just using his body and his frame and his strength and just going up and getting it. It's incredible. He's catching everything. I mean, he and Devontae had 15 targets and they caught 15 balls.
Yeah, very efficient today for those guys. 8 of 8 for AJ, 7 for 7 for Devontae. Jalen, you know what? We've given AJ his flowers. Jalen had a really good game, and he's playing not at 100%. I think it's very clear that knee is affecting him. We see it when he tries to scramble. He's not the same guy athletically, but he stood in the pocket today, and he kept firing.
Yeah, I thought on that one where he kind of slid awkwardly. Looked like he almost even might have aggravated. He got up a little ginger.
He started limping back a little bit.
Yeah. But
he really filled us in on the injury after the game. He said, "I'm here."
Yeah. And he answered, I don't know who asked the question, but he repeated it. It's how's your knee? But he's not going to answer it. 4 carries, 2 of them were kneel downs. He had the nice 7-yard. He got the first down. You could tell it took all the,
it was a gotta have it moment.
Yeah, it took everything he had just to convert. That was the only time he really ran. But I'll tell you what, you can convert. You can complete. What is it? 70 74% of your passes, 319 yards, 4 touchdowns, no picks. Had the fumble, which is unfortunate. It happens. It just shouldn't happen.
Yeah, I don't think he ever got it cleanly. It was a weird play.
It was hard to tell.
Yeah, I still haven't seen a very good replay of it.
Yeah. But I don't care. Look, I mean, yeah, I care, but I was just impressed with how he was able, and he did this with the ankle to an extent in 21 and with the shoulder last year, to tailor his game to what tools he has physically, and play a game that kind of circumnavigates his deficiencies physically and just takes advantage of what he can do. He stood in the pocket and was really accurate. He got the ball down the field, got it in the end zone 4 times. They did have 3 red zone touchdowns, so they were 3 for 5. I was really impressed with him and finding ways to make plays when he was so limited physically. It reminded me of that Donovan game against Arizona when it was a much worse injury.
Yeah,
obviously, but just the way he changed his game that day. He didn't run at all and threw 4 touchdowns and went on IR. And I think AJ Feely might have replaced him, but was that 03 maybe? Every 20 years. But you'd love to see Jalen go through a season without dealing with anything. But if he can play like this, you just hope that the bye week and a Monday night, 15 days between the Cowboys and Chiefs, you hope goes a long way toward healing whatever it is. But I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, if this was 2021 Jalen Hurts, he wouldn't have been able to play like this. He was so dependent on his legs back then as a young player, where he doesn't need to be. I mean, obviously he has better weapons now, but he can make all the throws. And I was very impressed. His best game of the year? Would you go that far?
I think so. Yeah, I
think so too. Yeah, he was really good. We mentioned AJ's performance. Devontae ended up with 99 yards. He got a little help from the refs missing a call, but also a little help from Ron Rivera not challenging that.
Little help from blown coverage on a touchdown, but he did what he had to do. I don't know. I can't imagine why Ron didn't challenge that. It was pretty obvious, I thought, at least on the TV copy.
Even if you don't think it's obvious, the timeout is Ron Rivera is not a good in-game coach.
I love the guy, but I can't disagree. Yeah.
He's not. He makes bad decisions. And then apparently he was saying the video board didn't help him out. He didn't get dude, you're the head coach. Throw the red flag. But the Eagles rush to the line. I don't even want to say they run a play because they don't even run a play. They snap the football and oh yeah, this is now a play. And Jalen throws it away. But
it was probably intentional grounding. He was in the pocket.
Yeah.
He threw it away. They've been calling that. So I thought they were going to call it.
There was, I think it was AJ on that side of the field. So you could probably
30 yards out of bounds and he was in the pocket.
Yeah.
But you know what? Even if it was worth it.
Sure.
Even if it was intentional grounding because you have the ball. So,
yeah.
But be that as it may, Devontae's a guy we don't really talk about much, and because he's in AJ's shadow, and but he's on pace for 85 catches and about 1,050 yards, 6 or 7 touchdowns. So, I mean, I think as teams,
he's going to get his.
Yeah, and as teams devote more and more resources to AJ, Devontae's going to be like, you know what, they're singling me, and he's going to get the football. And it's just the other guy is superhuman, so it's easy to kind of overlook Devontae, but he's a really, really good player.
Yeah, he is, and I'm not worried about him getting his targets and his yards. He's got to be patient because right now they'd be crazy to not put the entire offense around AJ. I mean, he's playing at a level we've never seen before in league history. Really, when you look at the record, maybe that's a little too far because there are other receivers playing really well, but certainly the best stretch an Eagles ever had. You got to keep throwing the rock, and it's it doesn't matter. You said it earlier, it doesn't matter who's on him, what they're doing. You just throw him the football. He also drew 2 penalties on the same guy and didn't get any yards for it.
I've never seen that.
It was, and honestly, it was good strategy. He almost caught it. You're right.
Almost caught. If he caught that, he would have been over 150 because that was a 31-yard penalty, maybe something like that.
Something like that. Maybe not that. Whatever. Yeah, it would have been a nice chunk.
Yeah, but then the touchdown would have been 32 yards.
Mm-hmm.
So he would have had 162. Sorry to say 162, and I don't want to trigger any Phillies fans. It's a baseball number, but yeah, I'm astonished at how he's playing, and I mean, none of them are hollow yards because they're just winning these games, and he's the best player on the best team in the league. And like they're having guys who've had more yards in a 6-game stretch. There've been a handful of them, but I'd rather have a guy catch 120 to 130 every week than Josh Gordon had 221 and then 12. I mean,
he's very consistent right now, obviously.
Incredibly consistent and put it in big yards per catch too. I mean, he's like 16, 17 yards a catch every week.
Yeah.
I can't wait to do my 10 stats piece on Tuesday because I might just do 10 AJ Brown stats.
Something tells me you will.
Yeah. Maybe 20.
I had a lot of fun. So if you haven't read my story from this week, I asked a bunch of AJ's teammates what impresses or what has impressed them most about him during. Am I boring you with my story here, Rube?
No, I really enjoyed that story, by the way.
Thank you. It was fun just asking his teammates what has impressed them most about AJ during this stretch. And I got a lot of different, unique answers. Britton Covey's one is something we've talked about, how good he is with his back to the defense and always making the right decision, which way to break. A lot of comments about how good he's been just in preparation throughout the week. Nick Sirianni brought up a few plays where he's not even catching the football, but he's blocking or he's drawing coverage and he's doing things to help his teammates, which all of that stuff is very important. And it's a fun stretch right now.
Yeah, Nick was really very, I don't know what's the word, eloquent talking about AJ post game. Very emotional. He got really emotional, just talking about what a good person he is. And what do you say? He's the best person in the locker room, best person on the team.
I wasn't there for Nick after the.
Okay.
I was in the locker room. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I got to be in the locker room to get all the sound that you guys play on post.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah.
I don't know if we played any locker room guys. Was AJ in a podium or in the locker room?
Podium.
Yes. I don't know.
No locker room guys made it on post game?
I don't think so. I'm not the producer.
Okay. All right.
We had Jalen, we had Nick, we had AJ. Oh, we had Reed.
Okay. Good.
And we had Byard. My bad. Yeah, we had.
Okay, good. I was like, I'm in there.
Only guys from Middle Tennessee State. That's it. But yeah, we did we had those two guys, and they were very good talking about. I thought very honest talking about. We'll get into the defense, but the other thing on the offense I wanted to mention was, and I wrote a glowing piece on Brian Johnson, and I still think he's. Look, they scored 38 points, but DeAndre Swift had one carry in the first half, and I just think he's too good to be ignored. And I get that. They love their matchups with Washington's pass defense. I understand that. But I just think and we saw in the second half, he has 15 for 54.
Yeah. He ends with 16 for 57 and the touchdown.
Which you probably shouldn't have scored. Probably should have taken a knee at that point. But when you're not getting very many carries, you probably want to get. This is my only chance to get in the end zone.
And if he never gets to score touchdowns because they get down to the one and they just tush push it.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I think 1 for 3 in the first half is insufficient, and he's too good to ignore like that. It was like the New England game all over again. Now they finally got to him in the third quarter, and and he had some nice runs, and they scored 28 points in the second half when they were running the ball a little bit. But you got to keep defenses off balance, no matter how much you like the matchup. And look, they're not a good run defense either. Eagles haven't been running the ball at all. Again, haven't been running it well or very, very much lately.
Yeah, Jason Kelsey brought that up post game. He's pleased with the offense and the way they're putting up points, but he said that there are definitely some things in the run game they have to clean up and get better at, which is apparent. They're not running the football as well as they were earlier in the year.
I think part of that might be Cam.
Mm-hmm.
I would expect some of that to improve. I think Sue has played pretty well, and he got a little banged up, and Tyler Steen, the rookie, came in for a bit.
Give credit to Sue coming back in that game for the second half.
Yeah. It looked like Steen hung in there.
He was out there for the 2-minute drive.
Yeah. I thought from what I could see, just watching on TV, looked like he hung in there on that drive, which would have been his first first offensive reps he's ever had in the NFL.
Yeah.
So good for him. But I just like to see a little more bounce. And they finished with 22 carries, including 4 from Jalen. Kenny Gainwell just doesn't look.
What do you make of? I mean, the fumble it can't happen.
Can't happen.
Like he's on the field because the coaching staff trusts him. I wonder if that trust starts to erode a little bit.
Yeah, and I kind of feel like he was a really, really good red zone player his first 2 years. He actually averaged 4.5 yards per red zone carry, which is the highest in the NFL over the last 2 years. And look, nobody's going to put up huge numbers in the red zone, but I mean, he's averaging like 1.4. You want to at least move forward a little bit. And look, there's the red zone, and there's the 19 and there's the 3. I get that, but you got to trust him. I kind of I want to see Boston a little bit more, a little bit less Kenny.
Yeah, I think that'd be an acceptable thing to do at this point.
I think Boston's got a real net.
Kenny's not giving him much.
No, he doesn't look the same. I don't know what it is. He doesn't look the same. And, Boston has 20 career touchdowns and like 354 touches. I think he had a catch today. That might have been his 355th, something like that. Yeah, he had 1 catch. I like him in the red zone. I like him by the goal line. And if you want to protect Jalen a little bit more, or if you're on the 4 and not the 1 or the 2, I think Boston Scott's a good option.
Yeah, I should say Kenny Gainwell did have that nice catch. He made a few nice catches in this game, but I mean the fumble kind of outweighs it all. Yeah. 2 other offensive things I want to bring up before we get to the break, and if you have any more, we can get to that as well. I like the wrinkle on the sneak. Oh the sweep. I thought that was a nice little wrinkle. I like all the stuff they put off of the QB sneak. They're pretty creative with it. I don't know if I would have used it in that moment, but I like that wrinkle. And then the Julio Jones touchdown was nice. That ball was not perfectly placed, but he goes up and catches it. And I mean, he took a shot at the end of that play. And I asked him about like getting hit like that, and he's like, I expect to get hit. They should hit me. He's like, I didn't blink. It is what it is. But having him it's a nice weapon to have. And
that touchdown got me thinking, I don't know if we'll see Quez again. I don't know how serious his injury is or what their plans are for him. OZ had that one big game. I think was it Tampa. Mm-hmm. Hasn't really done a lot other than that, right? Hasn't done anything.
He got a deep ball thrown his way in this game.
He did. A little overthrown, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, Jalen had a few overthrows early, but it started getting me thinking Julio probably going to be their best WR3 option at this point.
Yeah, well, today we saw a lot of like AJ in the slot, which is like we've seen Devontae in there. I'm curious to see the numbers for this game, but it looked like AJ was in the slot more than normal this game, which I'm sure was a matchup thing.
Yeah, I'd like to see a little more Julio. The oldest Eagle to catch a touchdown, oldest Eagle wide receiver to catch a touchdown since Mount Holly's Irving Fryer in '98 from Coy Detmer.
Okay.
And Julio would have to play another 3 years to break that record.
I don't like his chances.
Probably not good. Yeah. But that was good to see. And nothing against OZ. And OZ was really good in Atlanta, and he's a good guy, and he's local. But if I'm looking at Quez, OZ, and Julio as my options for the third receiver, I'm going Julio.
So you'd say you'd go Julio Jones over Quez Watkins?
Well,
I know it's just fun. It's funny to think about that. Like,
I hear what you're saying, but I mean, certainly, Julio's at a point in his career where I wasn't really sure what he had. I'm still not sure what he has left, but I saw enough. Just seeing him get in the end zone and make a play in a really big situation, really big moment. I want to see more of him.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Now, they might have to be a little careful with him. He's 34. I don't know if you want him playing a ton of snaps. You want to save him a little bit, you would think, right?
Yeah, but I mean, he can play 20 snaps.
Sure. But I mean, they're in 11 personnel a lot more than that.
I hear that. And
so there will be snaps for the other guy, whether it's OZ or eventually Quez. They might have a little bit of a numbers crunch coming down soon here because you have Cam Jurgens coming back. You have maybe Quez at some point coming back.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Cam is eligible now, right? Or this week to come off
this
IR.
week for Dallas. So we'll see. He's been walking around fine. I've seen him in the locker room. That doesn't necessarily equate to playing football, but he's been out of the boot for a while now.
I think we'll see him. Against Dallas.
Yeah, and it would help. I think it would especially help in the run game.
Yeah, I would think so.
Yeah. You have anything else on offense?
Nope.
All right, let's take a break. We'll get into some defense and maybe some special teams after.
You deserve a car that thrills you, a car that puts goosebumps on your goosebumps. At Nissan, we've got everything from turbocharged SUVs to 100% electric vehicles that'll make your heart beat faster. Experience the thrill for yourself and shop your local Nissan store and NissanUSA.com today.
Catch all the sports action and more at Rivers Casino Philadelphia. Whether it's the money line or the pass line, there's something for everyone in a great sports book. Rivers Casino Philadelphia. Philly loves a winner. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Rube, before we get to the defense, real quick, want to remind everyone to please rate and subscribe wherever you get your pods. If you're watching on YouTube, please click that like button and subscribe there as well. I like throwing these in, like when people aren't expecting them. It's like Halloween. It's like, there's the subscribe plug.
Just like Halloween.
Just like Halloween.
What do you got? What else? Let's talk defense.
Let's talk defense. It was not pretty. We were giving Sean Desai his flowers all week because of how great they were against Miami. They did not look as good against Sam Howell and the Commanders. Sam Howell finished this game. He completed 75% of his passes. It was way higher than that for most of this game. He throws for 397 yards, 4 touchdowns. Of course, the one interception was a big one, but he played really well.
Yeah, what surprised me was, they started out dinking and dunking underneath stuff. I was surprised how they were able to drive the ball down the field without the Eagles getting any pressure. That really, I guess, it shocked me that, I thought if they tried to do deep stuff, Sweat and Reddick and those guys were gonna get there. He's been sacked 40 times in 7 games, second most ever through 7 games. It's now 41 in 8 games. Reddick got one at the very end of the game, but
it was a big one too, by the way.
It was a big one. It was a real big one, and he's now got 6.5. But I expected a lot more pressure. I expected a lot more hits on him. One thing we learned about Sam Howell in the first game was if you don't pressure him, he can make all the throws. But that with that O-line, you expect him to get sacked 6 to 8 times. He got sacked once. He made some. Look, the secondary didn't play well. It was partly that, and he just made some big throws. It
was both. I thought the secondary didn't play well, but he did. Yeah,
he made some throws that it wouldn't have mattered. Reed Blankenship said in the locker room, I guess you were holding the mic for that. He was pretty critical of himself, and it was good to hear because it might have been the worst game he's played. It's only his 10th start. You forget, it seems like he's been around forever. He started 10 games in his career. And I think a real kind of typical for this team is that interception. He was playing awful, and he never flinched, never wavered, just kept grinding. I know he got some encouragement from his friend and not former college teammate, but guy from the same college. Kevin Byard was really encouraging him and just put it out of your mind, which you have to do, but it's sometimes a hard lesson. But he was awful. And that pick made up for it. I don't know if it made up for it, but it was a huge, huge play in the game. Deep in Washington territory, it really was play of the game. So to see him do that after struggling so much it tells you a lot about this team and him and just their ability to shake it off, as he said. I'm not sure if that was a Taylor Swift reference or not, but I think that's one of her songs, Dave.
I was surprised you knew that reference.
Oh yeah,
he wasn't making a reference, but I'm surprised you were able to.
I'm a Swiftie.
Okay.
Well, the whole connection with the National is what really got my attention. Brett Desner from the National produced 2 of her albums, Folklore and Evermore, I think. And they're really good records. And then the song she has on that last National album, it's called The Alcott. It's one of the best songs on the record. And she's great on it. So I am aware of her. I'm not like, a huge fan, but I think she's really talented.
Didn't expect that to be a sidebar here for us.
You never know what you're going to get on Eagle Eye. Let's finish.
Yeah.
Defense.
Jesus. Defense. Yeah. Reed was right. He didn't play well. But how much did you guys play of Kevin Byard after the game?
A lot, like 2 minutes of it.
I was really impressed by him.
Me too.
He talked about the standard. I don't even know if he's been here long enough to know what the standard is, but he talked about how poorly they played and how it wasn't acceptable. And he said, we're happy to win. You don't apologize for winning in this league, but we have to play better. Which is like, he just got here.
Yeah.
And I asked him a little bit about like, how do you know how to fit in from a leadership perspective? Because that's always something that really fascinates me. This guy's been in Tennessee for his entire career, and he obviously was a leader there, but he just got to this team. And this team has guys, they have 2 guys who have been here a decade on defense. They have 2 cornerbacks who are over 30. Like, this is a team full of veterans. But I liked it. I think it's a good thing to have another guy who's going to hold everyone accountable.
And that's what really impressed me about his comments is he was accountable. He was critical of his own play when he had a built-in excuse where he could have said, I just got here, only practiced a couple days. I don't really know the defense yet. I was out there doing my best. He didn't say anything like that. He's like, I got to be better. We got to be better. He sounded like a guy who'd been here since OTAs, and that was impressive.
Yeah, it's kind of rare that like.
Well, I was just going to say that kind of accountability goes a long way in the locker room.
It does. Like normally I go in the locker room, I don't really get a brand new story in the locker room, right? Like what the story is and you want to talk to the players about the story. That's a new story. That's fun. That's exciting to me when I go in the locker room and come out with something I wasn't expecting. That part is always really fascinating to me. I remember talking to Michael Bennett about that a few years ago, and he was a different cat, but the struggle of being a veteran who's been a leader elsewhere and coming to a team that's already established and trying to figure out how to fit in. It seems like Byard is doing that off the jump here.
Yeah. And I wrote that piece about how, the day he got here, he said the guys he knew came up and greeted him. He said Fletch and BG did too. And they apparently taught him well about how you act and how accountable you are if you're a Philadelphia Eagle.
Yeah. Do you think there's any carryover? Like, are you worried? We said there's no carryover from week to week from the big picture, but are you worried about this secondary given that Washington was able to kind of march up and down the field on them a little bit?
A little bit. Yeah. I'd be lying if I said no. As well as they played against Miami. There were guys running open all night, all afternoon. And that is a concern. There's been so many moving pieces in that secondary. And, Sidney was out there hasn't had a lot of playing time, did some good things, did some bad things. Byard, his first game here. So, Reed's just coming back from an injury. And it's only his 10th career start. I don't think the corners played well. That's a concern. But, yeah, Washington just kept them off balance. I thought Bieniemy called a really good game, and Howell made all the throws. You got a pretty high-powered offense coming in to the Lynx Sunday night, so they have to be better.
Yeah, they do. Still rotating at linebacker quite a bit. We saw Nakobe Dean and Zach Cunningham, Nick Morrow and Zach Cunningham, some Morrow and Dean. So they're really still rotating a bunch there. And then at the nickel spot, they had Sidney Brown started, and then they rotated in with Eli Ricks on third down. So still a lot of rotation there. I thought Jalen Carter got off to a really good start, and then he had a back injury, so he was kind of in and out. Him against the backup left guard early, I thought was going to be the matchup of the game because he was wrecking him early, and then he goes down, and they just weren't the same. Credit to Jordan Davis, by the way, playing through an injury. I didn't think he was going to go. Like we were watching him, me and Clarky were watching him in pregame, and he didn't look like he was firing right with that hamstring. So to play as much as he needed to in this game, I thought was a really big step for him.
Yeah, I thought he did some good things from what I could see. I thought he was solid, but yeah, that's something that you have a young guy who guts out an injury like that. That's something the veterans certainly notice, and that's look on a team like this, you got to do that stuff.
Mm-hmm. We talked about Reed getting that big interception late. You have to kind of mention Hassan Reddick in the same breath, getting that big sack late. He's kind of become a closer for this team. Yeah. He didn't really know why that is. I think it's just he's fresh at the end of games. I think it's a bunch of different factors, but for whatever reason, in the fourth quarter, he gets to the quarterback, and it's like game-ending plays a lot of times.
Right. I mean, they're in known pass there. That's when he can really tee off. I wonder if some of it is just kind of getting the feel for who you're playing against and figuring out what's working and what's not working, and then just going with your best move when you really need it. But he's such a pro that he could be denied 50 plays in a row. How many times they throw the ball? 52? He'd be denied 50 times in a row. He's going to come just as hard that 51st time, and that's what you love about him.
Yeah. You got anything else on defense?
Well, I'm going to get back to the last thing you said. I mean, I would like to see maybe fewer moving parts.
It feels like to me they're adding extra stress that you might not need.
Yeah.
And when it works, like you tip your cap and you say, great. But if it starts to not work, then maybe simplify a little bit.
Yeah, it's a thought. I thought Nakobe played well.
I did, and then he was off the field.
Yeah, I know. I thought he played well when he was out there. I thought it was one of his better games. He hasn't played that much. I wouldn't mind seeing him play the whole game.
I'm kind of there, and we'll see. Maybe there's another move coming from Howie. I don't know if he's done for sure. The deadline is Tuesday, so we'll record that podcast, and then he'll make a trade, and we'll go from there.
We can record. He won't make the move. Well, we'd have to wait till 4:00 he might make a move after the deadline. Figure out a way to do that.
I don't know if you can do that.
He's Howie. He can do anything.
Yeah. Special teams. Britton Covey had another 20-yard return. He's good.
25 was it? And he got tackled by his teammate, by Nolan Smith.
I saw that.
Yeah. So I don't know. Yeah, I don't think there were a lot more yards to get there, but that was. He got the ball out to midfield. That was pretty big. We've addressed the turnovers on offense and Reed's pick, but the Eagles have had, this is 6 straight games where they've been 0 or worse in turnover ratio. That's hard to believe. And they're 5-1 in those games. And it just goes to tell you, like, if they could just turn that around. I mean, their last 5 games, they have 4, 6, 8, 9 turnovers and 2 takeaways in our last 5 games, or the last 4 games, however you want to do it. But in the Slay pick and then Reed's pick, and then the last 4 games they've had 4, 2, 2, 8 turnovers in the last 3 games. So they're making it really a lot harder on themselves than it needs to be. And against a team like the Chiefs, the Bills, whoever it is, Dallas, Seattle, it's gonna be hard to get away with that.
Yeah, and I think some of that's on them, and I think there is just turnovers are a little weird, and you don't want to explain it away because they have to protect the football better, but it's probably going to regress to the mean a little bit at some point. So the fact that you're winning games through it is a good sign, I think.
It would be good for them if that regression to the mean begins in the next few days.
Yeah, they have a pretty big game coming up on Sunday afternoon at the Link.
Sunday late afternoon.
How many more times? Sunday afternoon. 4:25.
Yeah. How many times?
How many more times do I get to come here?
Yeah, it's an awful place. I don't miss it. Can I tell my FedEx story real quick if I keep it under a minute?
Please.
He's so enthusiastic. I think it was the last time I took the train. You can't take Amtrak anymore because they don't have a southbound train out of Philly or Trenton in the morning on Sundays anymore. But I used to take the train down to New Carrollton which is the closest station to FedEx Field. And so the one year, so the Eagles take the train too. The Eagles take the train down and back. They bus to the train station and bus from 30th to the NovaCare. So the one year, now the New Carrollton train station is very bare bones. There's nowhere to sit. There's no benches. There's no waiting room. You basically just stand there until the train comes. But I missed the one train. I had to wait like probably an hour. So I had to get some work done. So there's this concrete corridor between like the entrance to the station and the escalator that goes to the platform. So I just sat down, I took my tie off and unbuttoned my shirt, untucked my shirt, and I'm sitting there. I guess I look like a homeless guy with a laptop, and I'm sitting there writing my story, and all of a sudden I hear this commotion. I'm like, what is that? All this sound like 100 people were about to march through. And all of a sudden I forgot the Eagles took the train. They're on a charter train that had just arrived. So all of a sudden here come the Eagles down this corridor, and I'm sitting there on the concrete floor with a laptop looking disheveled. I know it's hard to believe. And everyone's walking past me, just making fun of me and everything. And here comes Jeff Lurie, and he sees me. And he's like, "Oh, Reuben, I didn't realize it got so bad." And he reaches into his pocket for a couple dollar bills to hand me. And that was a really funny Jeff Lurie moment. So yeah. I didn't accept the money. I thought about it, but that's my FedEx story.
That story was for all of you listening, not for me. I've heard that a few times.
That's for our listeners, Dave. It's not.
Yeah, I know. I'm saying it was a treat for the listeners. That's why if I look disengaged, that's why.
You always look that way when I'm talking.
All right. Should we wrap this one up?
Yeah.
All right. I'll do it again. If you guys would be so kind and you enjoy the Eagle Eye podcast, please rate and subscribe wherever you get your pods. If you're watching on YouTube, please click that like button and subscribe there as well. That's it. We'll wrap this up. The Eagles are 7-1. We'll talk to you later in the week. It's Dallas week. By the way, for Rube, I'm Dave. We'll talk to you soon.